Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2024 EAR webinar. You may remember me from previous webinars. My name is Chris Bria. I've been on a number of these over the last few years. We have a couple of excellent guest presenters in Peter Stackless, who will cover some RDRS info for us, and RT Lau, who will help on some of the functionality issues within the EAR. And just as a reminder, we are going to be using the Q&A session for this, for you to ask questions. As they roll in, we're going to stop after a couple different sections and address the ones that we can. And please put those only in the Q&A. If you put them in the chat, we're not necessarily going to be able to see them as they pop in. So we're really only monitoring the Q&A for this. If we call on you to speak, we'll ask you to unmute yourself, and that way, if it's a more complicated question, you can verbalize it. A number of questions we will probably also be answering in the Q&A pane as well. If you can't unmute or you do not get your question in, please send that and any other questions to logic@calrecycle.ca.gov. That's logic@calrecycle.ca.gov. Next up. So first up, hopefully many of you are experienced annual reporters. If not, we have a number of tools on our website to assist with the annual report. We have some basic requirements on here. From here, you can get to the MyLogic page, which if you're not a contact yet, there's a link to the contact change request form and or the WebPass sign up. When you submit a contact change request form, it comes into a couple of our staff and we get to them as quick as we can. When we add you to the system, it should send you an invite to create a WebPass, and then it'll automatically associate you to the jurisdiction when we add you. If you already have an activated WebPass account, you should get a note saying, using your existing WebPass, you can now access Logic. It doesn't necessarily matter which one you do first, but if you do the WebPass first, that doesn't necessarily get you into Logic. We do need to have you as a listed contact. And if we've added you as a contact and the WebPass invite you were sent expired or never arrived to your inbox because it got caught in the spam filter, we can still go in and recheck your security rights. So if you're having any issues with that, please send any questions to logic@calrecycle.ca.gov. We also have a list of contacts. So if you're not sure whether you're a contact or not, you can go to our local contact search, input jurisdiction or a county, and it'll let you know if you're on here. If you are a consultant or a hauler or just a general contact, you don't show up on here, but feel free to contact the Logic mailbox and we will either activate your account with your current WebPass or we will add you, we will have you fill out a form and add you through that. So I'm in the weird zone where I can't quite see all my tabs because I've got the box at the top. Next up, if you have not done a year before, we also have an additional help page here. It's the model reporting tools page. This has been included in various emails that have gone out, like the release message and any webinars we've done in the past few years on the EAR that go much more in depth into each section of the EAR, which we're not necessarily going to do today because it would take hours. The more in-depth walkthroughs are available on this webpage. And when we go over what we go over today in this webinar will be a much simplified version, but we will be taking questions on everything at the end once we get through the first couple sections. Next up, assuming that you have an active profile in Logic and you can sign in. When you come to the sign in page, you would sign in with your email address and put in your password, which I forgot, I'm not supposed to show that. So I'm going to go in through a different account. Forgot to have that open ahead of time, my bad. Anyway, once you're in the system, you'll see any jurisdictions that you have affiliations with. as well as any counties if you happen to do the county capacity reporting. So first up, I'm going to pass the control off to Peter Stackless, who works in our knowledge integration section, and he is going to go over the recycling and disposal reporting system data that feeds into the EAR calculator. So Peter, all yours.
All right, thank you, Chris. Yeah, I'm Peter Stackless, also called the policy office. I'm kind of the lead that oversees the RDRS design and development and creating the reports. So let me share how to get to the reports and share the screen. Okay, you guys see the CalRecycle webpage?
Yep, we do. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so how would you get to the RDRS section? There's probably multiple ways to get there, but the easiest way is to search for the term RDRS. And again, like Chris said, that means Recycling Disposal Reporting System, but we use acronyms a lot. So, and then if you search, the first result should be the main page at CalRecycle for RDRS. And then this page has a lot of different things for RDRS reporters, but the way to get to the reports, there's these buttons on the top, and then on the far right, RDRS public reports. And that goes to the main page. So what I'm going to go over is like there's 4 different reports that can show you the disposal, solid waste disposal data, green material alternative daily cover ADC data, and green material potential beneficial reuse data that feeds the EAR. And these reports, basically the data is reported at the quarterly level, and then we also show it in these reports at the summed year level, which is what you see in your EAR calculator. So there's some things to kind of know about how this data is reported and how the reports get updated. So basically, RDRS is a quarterly report system. So the data is reported after the quarter by all the facilities, like the landfills, transfer processors, and different facilities in RDRS that have to report. So say for like 2025 Q1, the reporting would not be done until end of June because they report in arrears in terms of the requirements of when they have to submit their data by the deadlines. And we also look at the data for like a month. So basically, if you wanted to see 2025 Q1, you would see that August 1st, and that's due to their reporting in arrears. So don't make this mistake of thinking, it's Q1, the data should be on there right away because they're entering it. There's a process that it takes a while to get on there. The other thing to remember is that in the EAR, the data is moved over at one time, like there were 2024 solid waste disposal and green material ADC. But in RDRS, it can change. And this is because any facility can revise their report at any time. Also, you may have reports that come in late. So the data may differ in these reports compared to the EAR. And also for these reports, the data is updated once, usually about midnight. So it's not on the fly. So if there are any changes, you won't see them until the next day. Like say if a facility reports it today, then it'll show up tomorrow in these reports. So I'll try to show you the first one. Report that's probably the one that you'll use the most is Public Report 1, overall jurisdiction tons for disposal and disposal related uses. And let me just run a quick search to show you some data. Oh, okay. Well, what this report will show you is for your jurisdiction, the overall tonnage, either for a quarter or for a yearly sum. And yearly sum is just the 4 quarters for a report year summed up, like what you see in the EAR. So I'll do that case. So if you pick yearly sum, these other filters let you filter it down by state, or you can look at it by a county or a jurisdiction, but I'll just do statewide. You don't have to pick the quarters when you pick an overall year and yearly sum because it already knows it's doing it summed year. And then you can also filter this, but I just usually leave it at all to see all the data. So it takes a minute. It's not instantaneous. Okay, so this will show you all the jurisdictions that have to report in the EAR for 24, and they're different disposal related information. And sometimes it's confusing, these columns. So I'll kind of go over them, what they mean. But these are going to be in all our reports pretty much if they report that data. So landfill, I'll talk about the host assigned part later, but landfill basically means it's solid waste sent to an in-state California landfill or that is exported out of state by a transfer processor or a contract hauler. Transformation would be a tons sent to transformation, which is like incineration, pyrolysis, distillation, etc. in an in-state facility. We only have 2 of those currently in California, and then I think one of them is closing down. EMSW is engineered municipal solid waste conversion. So this is solid waste used for beneficial processes and then used for fossil fuels. We have a few of those, but this material also counts as disposal. So that's why you see it here. Pardon me. So you got to kind of scroll at the bottom to see the different top columns. Green material ADC, that's alternative daily cover, basically used by landfills. And so that also counts as disposal starting in 2020. So that's why we show it here. And then you get into host assigned. So what does host assigned mean? Basically, the system RDRS tracks facilities that send materials to the final landfills or disposal facilities that dispose of it. And so the origin information can be reported by these upstream facilities. But sometimes if there was no origin information reported from these upstream, like transfer processors, or due to the fact that they didn't submit a quarterly report or they just didn't send it there, then we have to assign those tons to a jurisdiction. So in those cases, the material is assigned to the sending facility that was reported. So like if a landfill reported that a transfer processor sent them waste, but we didn't have any origin information for that transfer processor, it would be assigned to that transfer processor and the jurisdiction that they reside in. So I know it gets confusing because we have this a lot, but it basically is just saying that these tons were host assigned versus we got the origins reported in the system. And so that's what these next fields kind of show. For the different materials I already went over, you can see the host assigned amounts, and then you can see the total host assigned amount. And then on the far right, you could see exported tons sent out of state for green material potential beneficial reuse. There's a difference in terms of green material ADC that's in state. We know it's used for ADC, but when it goes out of state, we call it potential beneficial reuse because we don't know if it was used for ADC, but it still counts as disposal and ADC because it was sent out of state. And that's what these 2 fields are showing. And then they're showing you the host assigned tons for green material potential beneficial reuse. So yeah, so this would be like your main report you'd want to use if you just want to see your overall tons that came into the year, and then you want to see it by quarter. Okay, so going back to the next one. So the next main report that's beneficial is the jurisdiction disposal and beneficial reuse by destination. So again, it takes a little bit. System can be slow. But the main purpose of this report is to show, instead of summed up for jurisdiction by year, it'll show all those same fields that were in the other report, but show it by destination. So it's still taking a while to load. Okay, there we go. And so it has the same options that the other report had. You can look at it by quarter or by yearly sum. So I'll just pick yearly sum. And then for years, it'll show the current years that are in the system. So we have everything up to 24. And then you can pick a jurisdiction. You can look at it by landfill transformation, EMSW, or you can do all. Again, I'll pick all. And then here you could actually look at a facility that receives it. So what this report is doing is showing you the final destination of that disposal, or it's showing you the transfer processor that sent the material out of state for export. So that's what would be listed here. But if you don't want to pick a facility, you can just search all. And again, it takes a little bit. It might be because of the Zoom that's a little slower. And also, I forgot to mention that anytime you can export this data, and it'll create an Excel file with all these same fields and all the data that you output here in the screen. So that can be useful. But yeah, so you can see here for 24, you have a destination facility, Acme, and then it'll show the jurisdictions that it received tons for these different materials. And it has the same columns that I mentioned in the other one: landfill, transformation, EMSW, and then it'll show you the green material ADC, and then the host assigned fields. So it's pretty straightforward. And then the third beneficial report is if you want to see just export. That's the jurisdiction disposal export out of state by destination. So again, I'll pick 24 and yearly sum. And the difference in this report is that it actually shows you where it went to out of state, whereas that other report 2 did not. It just shows you who sent it out of state. So here you could see, well, once it loads the data. And it doesn't have all those other fields because it's just showing you the tons of disposal exported out of state and then the tons of disposal exported out of state that was hosted. So it just focuses on disposal and not green material ADC. I'm sorry, no, it actually shows you by material type. If it ever loads here, I don't know why the system's so slow, but it actually breaks it down by material type here. So it'll show you solid waste or green material ADC as soon as it appears. Apologies, so it's being so slow. Okay, so you can see like Agoura Hills for green material for potential beneficial reuse. They sent it to Lockwood Regional Landfill out of state in Nevada, and then it shows you the tons of disposal. And then if it was host assigned, it would show you those tons. So it can be useful if you're looking at issues for exported tons for jurisdiction data. And then the last report we have is report 6. I won't go into it because this would be more of a drill down. It basically, I'll just show you what it looks like. It'll show you who sent the material and how it originated. So that's in this originating type field. So it could show you whether the material was sent directly to a landfill in California, whether it came from another transfer processor and then sent to California disposal, or if it was sent out of state, it shows you the different options. So it's like sent to an exporting transfer processor sent out of state, or a contract hauler exported the material out of state, or a transfer processor sent it to another transfer processor and sent it out of state. So it'll show you all that info, but we're limited on time. So if you're interested in that one, more of a deep drill down in terms of looking at jurisdiction, disposal, and green material ADC data. The other 2 reports that are useful are report 0. So in case you need to look at a certain facility, this basically shows you all the registered reporting facilities in RDRS. So it automatically loads them right away. And there's a lot of different fields, but it'll basically show you their organization site name, their entity name, how they report, the type that they are. So if they're a transfer processor or landfill or transformation facility, which would probably your reporters would be more interested in transfer processors and disposal facilities because that's the data that they report the data in RDRS. And then if you go to the bottom, it'll show you their address info and then their general phone for their site. So it can be useful if you need to find a certain facility, and then you have all these different filters where you can filter it if you need to find it in the list. And then finally, we got the quarterly report search. What this does is show you all the registered facilities. So, and whether their reports are submitted or not. So say you were interested in 2024 Q4, which was the last quarter for the 24 data that went into the year. So if you did a search, it'll basically show you that the site, the entity, and then the reporting status for their quarterly report. And then the RDS ID is a special ID that each entity gets when they report in RDRS. So it's their unique identifier. And again, it's taken a little bit, but okay. So you can see, so registration status basically means whether they have to report or not. So some are inactive, and that means they're not reporting. but the active ones would be the ones you'd want to look at if you were looking for a certain facility. And then the reporting period. And then, pardon. So if you go to this further, it'll show you more info like the status. This is be the key thing if you want to see if a report was submitted or not. So it would tell you here, submitted or not. And then the due date of when it was due, and then when it was submitted. So that could be useful if you're trying to pinpoint if like a certain quarterly report was submitted by a facility you're interested in looking at. So that's basically it for helpful data for jurisdiction disposal data. There's other reports here too that show data in RDRS, but it's not the focus for this presentation. So I'll stop sharing unless we have questions. And should I stay on the screen, Chris? For the Q&A?
Yeah, we did have a
I'll stay
question
on.
come in.
Guess they want me to show something.
Yes, from anonymous participant, they're asking what are the most common uses of this information? Do they need to access all this to do our ear? And are we supposed to check all this and be sure it's our tons? Yes and no and yes. We're going to get into what this data does in the next section when we go into the disposal calculator, because everything he just showed you, the tons that apply to your jurisdiction are what feed into the disposal calculator, but all the detail about the facilities it went through or whether it was host assigned, none of that's in the ear. So this is more of the granular data. And yeah, you would want to ensure that it's yours. How you can do that is probably looking more at some past year's trends. But when we get into the next disposal calculator section, hopefully that will cover it. And then, Ali, would you explain how the RDRS system benefits jurisdictions in filling out their ear? Yes, we will explain that. All right.
Well, I think Chris just did, yeah.
Yeah, so let me get the screen back and then we'll go into.
I'll stop sharing.
Once again, because I did catch this in the chat. Just as a reminder to people. Here. There it is. Just as a reminder, if you have questions, please don't put them in the chat box. Please put them in the Q&A so that we can either answer them live or have you ask them. If you put them in the Q&A, we're not monitoring that. I did see a couple things come in there while I'm admitting people from the waiting room and everything. So we are able to monitor the Q&A much more easily than the chat. Once again, the chat will be in your Zoom tools at the bottom. I think if you have a smaller screen set up and you don't have as many options at the bottom, the Q&A will be either under the 3 dots or the more button on the right side. Okay. Next up, let's go to the ear itself. So when you log into the ear, you will see the sign in. It's going to ask you if you're not a contact and you don't have access, or if you are a contact and don't have access, it's going to say unauthorized. That's when you were going to want to contact the Logic mailbox, and we'll either assign your security rights or we'll need to get a contact change form. Now I'm going to switch back to our staging data. So this demo is all going to be in staging. None of the data we're looking at is necessarily real. That's what this yellow bar across the top looks like. When you log in, any jurisdictions that you have access to and are reporting for will show up on your list here. Today, for demonstration purposes, we're going to look at Sonoma County Waste Management Agency. From this load screen, you can get past summary PDFs of the ear or past venue reports, or you can go into a specific diversion program note report and download just your diversion program notes. There's a small summary of some of what Peter mentioned regarding RDRS right here. And then the previous disposal data from the electronic disposal reporting system up through 2019 is located below, but I don't think you're going to need to do a whole lot with that. So let's go into an EAR, and we're going to jump ahead to the disposal rate calculation section that is related to everything Peter just spoke about for RDRS. So all that data Peter was looking at in and showing you in the reports, that's much more granular and it has a lot more detail. What you're seeing here is kind of a summary of each of the types of disposal that he went over, as far as landfill, transformation, EMSW, green material ADC, and green material export. And that would add up to a total. The reason this is important for the EAR is because this determines what's known as the per capita rate for your jurisdiction. There are two of those, one for population, one for employment. And per capita rates are a way of measuring goal achievement that started after SB 1016 took effect in 2007, 2008. Been a while. So the importance of all that data Peter was showing you, and once again, we're in staging. This is not real data. This is some stuff I set up just for this. No one's got 1, 2, 3, 4 of these tons. Be interesting if they did. So the importance of all that data and what Peter was showing you is that it feeds into this. And if if some of it's not correct, this is where you're going to need to use those reports and all that data Peter was showing you on the public reports to maybe get an idea of, well, where are these tons actually coming from? Because I don't think they're right. So depending on how, if this is accurate and you don't need to change anything, great. If it's not, you can make a change in this reporting and maybe put in a number, but unless you need to get it fixed in RDRS if it's a misallocation issue. If you're going to change that number or any of these others, you can feel free to fill out a disposal modification form. If you're wondering what each type of these credits is, they are explained on the form. And I had that open before. Oh, great. I did download it. And each item that qualifies for a reduction credit is explained on this form. Specifically for misallocations, if you don't think this is the number and you're like, actually, this shouldn't be 390, this should have been 340,000 tons, you press save and it'll recalculate the per capita rate. If you don't think that the number's correct and you think it should be this, you need to work in RDRS to get the misallocation fixed in there. I mean, of course you can change it here. One question we keep getting is, do I still need to fill out a disposal modification form and provide records and everything else? If you have it changed in RDRS before the annual report is due, we will catch that change. So if it's changed in RDRS, regardless of what you put in here, because the numbers will still fluctuate a little bit, but this gives us an indicator that, oh, this is something we need to look at. If it's changed in RDRS, before you submit your report and everything's good, you don't need to worry about a form. It'll be taken care of. If that number's not fixed in RDRS, that's when you would still want to complete one of these disposal modification forms and explain why you think it's not correct. And depending on what type of misallocation you're going to pick, there's another section of data you have to fill in. And especially for the misallocation, there's a big question about how are you preventing this from happening in the future. That's kind of where, we're fixing the issue in RDRS, because we do have some issues with origins. We have some problems where certain facilities don't always report the correct origins data, and then it trickles down to other jurisdictions. That's not as common as it used to be, but it's still something we deal with a couple times per year. So that's ideally why we want to get any misallocation or misreport issues fixed in RDRS prior to submittal, because it makes it a lot simpler and can prevent the issues from happening in the future. And frankly, it just, it's a lot cleaner on our end, not having to necessarily go through all the records and try to figure out what's wrong. Because frankly, if it's really a misallocation that we can accept as part of our review, there's no reason it shouldn't be accepted in RDRS. And if you're having trouble contacting a facility or working with the facility and getting information on the RDRS pages that Peter was showing you, there is a complaint button that you can press and fill out a little bit of info saying, here's why we think this is incorrect. And here's how we've been trying to work with the facility, but aren't quite getting through to them. So you feel free to contact RDRS before hitting the complete button. But once again, that's where the importance and the role of all that disposal data comes in. It's directly related to completing this calculator and making an annual per capita rate. So, hoping that answered all the questions.
Yeah, and if you, sorry to interrupt, if you
Oh, yeah,
need to
go ahead,
contact RDRS, we have a helpline, rds@calrecycle.ca.gov. So it's pretty straightforward. You can send questions there. I mean, if it's not RDRS related, then you'd be sent elsewhere. But if it's like you want to know about like certain facilities or whatever, and you could post questions there. It's also used to help, and facilities report too for technical assistance. Thanks.
Okay. So a couple questions from anonymous participant. So much info, but isn't the only part we can really check apart where a list of generators is specified. We can see if they are in our jurisdictions to contact them and find out if they're really hauled from our jurisdiction. That was the old DRS, but is the list of generators in this new RDRS?
No, not really.
I don't think we ever had a list of generators.
They don't really.
That's
It's not.
something where you would, when you contact, if you're concerned about the tons, you would contact the disposal facilities and try to get records of that. That's how you would determine individual generators. I don't think that's ever been a feature of DRS or RDRS.
Yeah, RDRS, the main requirements in the regulations are that landfills had to report the tonnage they receive, transfer processors had to report the solid waste and green material ADC that they accept and send to other facilities. So they're the main ones reporting. You do have contract haulers report if they're sending it out of state. They don't have to report if they send it in state, and that's per the regulations. But yeah, in terms of generators, they don't report in RDS really.
So yeah, anonymous participant, please send a message to the Logic mailbox if you need further specification on that. Next up, also anonymous participant, when pulling up RDRS, I see landfills we don't have, or we don't use, / have a contract with, are reporting that they are receiving materials from our city. What could be the reason why? Our transfer facilities in our city reporting it comes from our city because that is where the transfer facility is located. But in reality, they receive materials from other cities. All that is true. Just because you have a hauler and a contract and you think it would go through a specific facility, that's not necessarily the case. You have self-hauling that goes on a lot. You might have a contractor, working on a project in another city, but then they're dropping it off at a landfill on the way home or a transfer station on the way home, and they say, "Where are you from?" And they say where they live, not necessarily where the material came from. There's a lot of different reasons why you will see disposal facilities and transfer stations in your list that aren't yours. I think the biggest concern is if you were to see a really large number at one of these non-contracted facilities, that would be cause for concern. And that, we do see that occasionally, and we're usually able to work that out with the facility through the RDRS system. Peter, anything else to add on why they might have tons from random facilities? I mean, that it's quite a network of the way waste moves around.
Yeah, I mean, you covered it pretty well, Chris. It's pretty much, it's what the facility reports. There is the option of, and I think the regs allow that you can contact the facility and ask for records in terms of like what they received. You directly being the jurisdiction. Sometimes they may not get a report submitted on time and the data gets host assigned due to missing data, like I showed in those reports. And that could cause some issues where a certain jurisdiction gets more tons than they should because the origins weren't reported further up the stream or where it was directly accepted due to like a missing quarterly report, or they just didn't send it there. So that's another reason it can happen. Hopefully it doesn't happen that often. We do have a staff review team in the policy office and KISS that tries to look at overall issues with RDS reporting and resolve them. But the jurisdiction related issue, to go down that deep, it's harder to resolve all those. And that's why it's good for jurisdiction context to look at those RDS reports. And if they see something during the year that they think is not normal in terms of their tonnage, then they could like address it earlier than when they're actually doing the year. But it's understandable. Yeah, you do it now too.
All right,
So hopefully,
thank you.
yeah.
And also, if you have further questions on RDRS or what your ton should be, once again, there's a number of data reports, and you can also contact your jurisdiction or your land representative if you have further questions. Once again, on the contact search, if you go to your city, if you're not aware who they are, you can get it from the contact search. And then also when you're in the year itself, on the very first page, if you don't know who your land rep is, it's going to show it right here. Sorry, I got a zoom window in the way I can't quite highlight that. I hope I got it. So yeah, if you have more detailed questions on what would apply or whatnot, please contact your land rep, or you can always get a hold of RDRS in the Logic mailbox. Okay. Carlos Chavez is asking if it's possible to access the staging version of the year too. No, it is not. This is something just for our staff, and this is all testing and staging data. This is not really available year round, and it's something we can only get in through our network. I get that it might be useful to see the year ahead of time outside of the window from June 15th to August 1st. There's a couple issues with that where sometimes it's going through changes, so those changes aren't necessarily ready before June. The disposal data isn't ready before the middle of June. There's various reasons why you can't access it ahead of time. And we've had people ask, like, is there a way to get like my report, like, a template version of it? I mean, probably your best bet would be to come in and get a report summary before you've completed it. And this will kind of give you an idea of what fields to fill in. And, this report hasn't actually changed at all since last year. There were no major updates this time. So if you have your report summary for last year, you've got a pretty good indication of what you would need to work on for this year.
Also, Chris, I noticed you talked about the RDRS complaint and how page and how to reach it. It's actually on the main RDRS page. It's the button that was to the left of the public reports button. So if you click on that, it'll take you to the page where you go to the main yeah, that one in the middle there at the top. Scroll up. That guy.
RDRS number. Yes.
Yep. So if you click on that, then you have a bunch of different fields to fill out in terms of their complaint information. And you can select an entity that you're complaining against, because it's only related to RDRS reporting. So you'd want to have it related to a facility that you have an issue with.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah. I mean, ideally, I guess this could be your first step, but ideally you'd want to contact the facility first and try to be like, hey, we got an extra 30,000 tons at this landfill. We've never sent anything there before. Like, what's going on? And a lot of times, we do end up with those misallocations, especially, places where a city and a county share the same name. Those happen often enough too. So hopefully, any misallocation issues we are getting sorted out through RDRS and not through an EAR disposal modification, because that doesn't really get to the heart of the issue if it's going to be a recurring thing. Okay, it looks like maybe the last question on RDRS. Hoping to confirm if you happen to know, the live RDRS tons do not currently match what was pulled into the EAR statically from a week ago. No, they do not. We do know that a couple late submittals that came in late on June 12th were not pulled into the EAR for the final day on the 15th, and it's because the RDRS origins process is super complex. So if there were a lot of changes submitted really close to the end, some of those didn't come in. And, if they weren't there, you don't necessarily have to, change the disposal tons. If you don't want to say, well, it's not 390, actually it should be 410. You can put that in there. You don't have to tell us. If you do, that's fine. But let's say it ends up not being 410 when the RDRS data is kind of or the year is finalized after sometime in late November, early December. That number, unless there's a credible reason that this shouldn't be whatever's in RDRS, it's going to get updated to whatever's in RDRS. So if some tons got missed, or some adjusted tons that you shouldn't have got missed last week, but they're fixed by the time you submit it on August 1st, you should be in good shape. Okay. Yeah, so this question's going on a little bit. And if you don't necessarily want to get into a disposal mod, you're happy with the tons in RDRS. On the calculation factors page here, there's also a disposal rate accuracy box where this is you can put in any other notes you have regarding your concerns with your disposal tonnage. And I guess while I'm on this page now, I will point out that if you have any green waste ADC, if the tons are there in RDRS, you will be required to answer question 1 on this page. Question 2 and 3 are only required if you're not meeting your per capita rate target. So that is just a trigger from the previous page if there were any green waste tons. And now this question's reminding me that was one of the issues we had last week, where some of the tons that were put into RDRS that didn't make it into the year were green waste tons. So because their number is 0, they can't edit this box. So we suggested they just put it in this disposal rate accuracy ton box. Okay. That appears to be the last question about RDRS. There's another one in here that is much broader, and I think we will have to get to that at the end, Colleen. So we want to keep Peter's time here specific to RDRS and the disposal calculator. So if there aren't any other questions, we will shift over to our T-Lao, who will go over one more. What percentage of jurisdictions are not meeting their per capita target?
That's not an RDRS question.
That's not an RDRS question. That would be a, not sure. It's going to fluctuate year to year. I'm sure you could, if you really want to know, you could go using one of the public web reports, probably download that and figure out who's over and who's not. And also that's an even more complicated question because there's 2 targets. There's a population target and an employment target. So there's a number of jurisdictions who are not necessarily meeting their population target, but they are meeting the employment target. So as long as you're meeting one, that's okay. So the percentage of jurisdictions not meeting target is a much more complicated question than it seems, and I do not have an answer ready on hand. Sorry. Okay. With that, I am going to stop sharing, and I'm going to hand off control to RT, who is going to go over a couple basic sections of the year and do a little bit of a demo on functionality.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Just 1 second while I figure out. Oh gosh, this wants me to sign in.
Sorry, we went too long on you.
Yeah, we have to use remote desktop to do our staging, so that logged me out. Chris, can you see my screen for the ear?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Arthi Lal. I'm one of the senior environmental scientists in our local assistance branch of CalRecycle. And alongside Chris Bria, I assist our branch and our the jurisdictions with the ear. So today I'm going to briefly go over some of the functionalities of the ear. because we made no updates to the ear this year. So there's nothing really new to share. But I will point out again, and this Chris already showed this, if you are new or if you need a review, please go to our model reporting tools webpage. And if you scroll down, you can see our past webinars. The ones that were done in 2023 are very detailed. They go over every single section of the ear and how to complete it. We also have 2022 webinars that are really great because, as Chris mentioned, there are city and county focused ones, regional agency, and special districts. And some, open-ended Q&A ones that you might find helpful. So definitely watch those if you're new or need a refresher, because today we're just going to go over briefly on how to enter some of the information in the ear. Okay, so this is the summary webpage of our staging, and we're using Sonoma County Waste Management Agency. It's, all the information in here is fake, so not real. Scrolling down, we have our latest news box. The biggest news here is that the ear is due August 1st, 2025. So the 2024 ear is due August 1st, like always. And a couple of other things to access the various different the various different sections. You can access them through these tabs here at the very top. And also you can see them here. This is really nice because you can see which section is complete and which section is not complete. So if it's a red, check mark X thing, that section is not complete. If it is complete, there'll be a green check mark next to it. And then I think Chris also mentioned this, you can see who your land rep is and some help guides as well. Okay, so I am going to go into the procurement section just to show you, some of the editing features that the ear has. So going into that, you can see that there's a red check mark next to procurement. That means the section is not yet complete. We have 2 edit buttons on the page, one at the very top, and then scrolling down all the way, one at the very bottom. They both do the same thing, so you can click either one to open the editing feature of the page. So selecting that edit button opens up the editing features of the whole page, and then you have to go in and make further edits in the various sections. So for our recovered organic waste product procurement, you can see that this section has its own edit buttons. And another thing to note here, we are using a regional agency, so that's why you see multiple jurisdictions here. If you're a single jurisdiction, you won't see all other jurisdictions there. So the different types of questions will have different features. So here, to enter information in the table, there's another edit button that you'll have to select. But if we scroll down, like this section, you can enter this information directly on here. So select the check boxes, and there is no second edit button there or here. And I'll get into that in a little bit. Let me scroll up and then open Petaluma here. So selecting edit opened up a form that completes the different sections of the table. So here you can see that there's a red asterisk next to all of these fields. That means that that's a required field. You have to enter something. And if there's no information to enter, so let's say Petaluma did not recover any mulch for 2024, you would enter 0. If you don't enter anything, it won't let you save. So once you have the form filled out, you save the form, and that saves the information. Another thing I wanted to note is this option. So if your jurisdiction has a department approved waiver, so a low population, elevation, or rural exemption waiver, it will pop up as a checkbox in the applicable sections. So let's say that Sonoma has a rural exemption. So what this does is, if I wanted to save this, it will not let me save because all of these are required fields. But if I had a rural exemption, checking that box bypasses the required fields. So then I'm able to save that without entering anything in. So you will only have that option if your jurisdiction has that waiver, and it'll show up in the applicable section. Okay, moving on. This section, they're just check boxes, so that's pretty easy. You just check the boxes, and you'll have to select save on the page to save the page. And we do recommend that you save as often as you can because you don't want to lose any information. So I just saved the page, and it let me know that I'm not done with it, that this is not a green check mark yet. So let me go back and edit, and then scroll down to the SHRI programs. So for SHRI programs, you are checking this box to validate the program. And if you have to make any changes, you see that checking the box here turns this into a hyperlink. So to make any changes to that program, you can go into this hyperlink. And if you just have a brief description of the program and it's less than 2,500 characters, you can enter that here without needing to go into the diversion detailed program section. But let me show you. If I click here, it tells me, it asks me if I'm sure if I want to leave the page because I didn't save the page. So it's reminding me to save my information and then go into the diversion program details, detailed page. And here I can edit and make any changes I need to make in the program. Or if you have a description that's, 2,500 characters or more than 2,500 characters, you can enter it here on this page. You can save it and then go back. And then now you see a green check mark, which tells you that this page is complete. And I pre-populated this page, so it would show a green check mark. Okay. And the second thing I wanted to go over is the collection systems section. So we have the container collection systems grid in here that's rather large. So we do like to go over it every year just as a review for everyone. So again, there's an edit button that opens the editing features of the page. Before going into it, I do want to talk about the additional hauler button here. So you should be entering the container collection system that the jurisdiction has. So let's say you have 2 haulers and they both use a 3-container system. Those generators can be combined into one line, so you do not have to separate them by hauler. But if you have 2 haulers and one uses a 3-container system and one uses a 2-container system, then you can go ahead and add the additional hauler for the 2-container system, because, you know, they're using different container systems. Okay, let's go into edit. So this opens up the form that feeds into this table that you enter information for the number of generators for the residential and the commercial. So scrolling down, you can see there's a hauler name section here. If you have any waivers, those checkboxes will show up here. Residential systems and commercial systems. So I'm just going to put hauler 1. You do not have to enter the hauler name. You can put hauler 1 or, you know, keep track of them any way you'd like. I'm going to say this hauler does not collect residential, so I can just demonstrate this. Going down into commercial, I'm going to say this hauler has a 3-container system and 300 generators. Another thing we want to note here is that, again, the number of generators should reflect the jurisdiction's container system. So this should not include, you know, the waivers that the jurisdiction has. So let's say with 300 generators, if 100 of them have a de minimis waiver, you will not put 200 here for 3-container and 100, or excuse me, 200 here for 3-container and 100 here for 2-container for the de minimis waivers. You will put them all in 3-container system. And answer this question, organics allowed in the gray container. I'm going to go ahead and put no. And then scrolling down, you'll see that there is a left to right scroll bar for just this grid. So you want to scroll all the way down or in the middle of that grid to see the save and cancel button. So you'll have to scroll down to be able to save it. And then even to view the information that you just entered, there's a scroll bar, and the scroll bar is right above the next section. So you'll see it right above the compostable plastic section. And if we scroll all the way down to commercial, you'll see the information that I just entered. Okay, so if you did have a hauler that it has a different collection system, you can go ahead and use the add additional hauler feature. If you're an RA, select your jurisdiction, enter the hauler name or however you want to name them, and then go ahead and fill out this form just like before, and then scrolling down to save that hauler. Okay. And I actually have one more clarification that we wanted to talk about. So in the waivers and exemptions section, scrolling down to the jurisdiction issued waivers. So the number of waivers issued should be for that year, so for 2024. So the number of de minimis, the number of physical space waivers, you should be entering the number of waivers that were issued in 2024 here. So we just wanted to provide that clarification for everyone. And I think that's it.
We've got a couple questions. You want me
Okay.
to read them? So the first and most basic one is, once again, anonymous participant. Can you explain the difference between 3-container and 3+?
Oh, yeah. So 3-container, oh, we actually have a tooltip here too. So 3-container system is just 3 containers. So let's say you have a gray container for trash, blue container for recycling, and a green container for organics recycling. So that's a 3-container system. 3+ container system, it's usually for jurisdictions that have a 4-container system. So they might have a 4th container for food waste if they differentiate their green waste and food waste. So it could be a brown container for food waste and a green for their green waste. Or if there's a split container system, you know, if they're splitting their recycling into different types, or however their collection system is. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Next up. No, once again, anonymous participant. We have asked 2 separate lambs for different jurisdiction, and one said that they have a waiver and 2 containers. Then we would just enter it under 2 containers, not 3 containers. Believe that's saying because they have a waiver from organic bin,
Okay.
that they
So
would just enter it under 2 containers and not 3.
So they have a jurisdiction waiver, or are they asking about jurisdiction waivers in this section? Hold on one second. I'm
This
gonna look
person
at
wasn't
it.
anonymous. We could unmute them, but don't know who they are. Yeah, we have 2 separate lambs for different jurisdiction. And one said that if they have a waiver and 2 containers, then we could just enter it under 2 containers and not 3. I'm assuming that means they asked 2 different land reps from 2
Okay.
different jurisdictions. So that's that first part of the sentence.
Yeah.
And one said they have a waiver and 2 containers, we would enter it under 2. Yeah, so I think if you have a waiver and
Yeah.
you're on a 2-container system,
Mm-hmm.
you would,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you would put it under 2. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. So it's the container system that the jurisdiction has. So, you know, if the jurisdiction is only offering, or, you know, the hauler or the jurisdiction, if they're only offering those 2 containers, that's what you would put the 2 containers. And let us know if that wasn't what you were asking, and we can clarify.
And it also possibly could be because, you know, in a county that has a low pop waiver for certain tracks, that they can click that waiver box. And so it doesn't require all the fields, but they're still supposed to report on the places that aren't waived. So maybe that's what that's referring to, where in the unwaived areas you put in the 3, but in the waived areas you only have to report on the 2 if you choose. That could be it. Yes, Mrs. Anonymous participant. If you need further clarification, contact your land rep or the Logic mailbox, and we'll try to figure that out. Once again, anonymous participant. What if your city has 5+ commercial haulers? Are we entering each one of them?
Okay, so you are, sorry, let me just share again. There we go. I think you can see my screen, right? So you should be entering there we go. So and that is explained here in this bullet point too. So you should use the additional hauler button only if the haulers have different collection systems. So if all 5 of those haulers have a different collection system somehow, then you would enter them separately. But if, you know, you can combine the ones that have the same collection system. So like the 3 containers, you can combine together, the 2 containers, 3+, etc. So it depends on the collection system that the hauler does.
All right. Next up, we have Rachel Balsey from Stop Waste. That I think this is a good question to actually unmute and have her ask directly, because I feel like there's a little bit of nuance, and I think this is one that comes up a lot. So hold on while we get to you, Rachel, and we'll ask you to unmute and you can
Just
get the question in.
Hi, yeah, Rachel Bosley from Stop Waste, Alameda County Waste Management Authority. I just wanted to make sure I'm totally clear on whether accounts that have a jurisdiction approved de minimis waiver would be included in the count of generators in a 3-system container collection system. Because it was a little confusing the way it was stated. So my notes from last year are that they would be included. So if you have 300 generators, 100 of which have an approved waiver and 200 of which have the collection service to be compliant, then all 300 would be in that 3-container system. So just wanted to make sure I have that right.
Correct. Yes, I
Okay.
tried to use the same example as last year, but I don't think I said it as clearly this time, right? So yes,
Okay.
so if the waivers should not be included. So like if you have a number of generators with like de minimis waivers, they should not be added to the 2-container system because they don't have the organic spin. They should all be in the 3-container system section because that reflects what container collection system the jurisdiction has.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Okay.
too. Next up, kind of related from April Luttrell. Just want to be sure I heard correctly. We include waivers in the number of generators for collection container systems.
Let me just do that part again, and I'll try to be more clear. I'm sorry about that, you guys. Okay.
It's okay. It's not the simplest thing.
So I'll use the same example. So let's say you have 300 generators, and of those 300 generators, 100 of them have a de minimis waiver. You will put them all in the 3-container section. You will not put 200 here and 100 here as 2-container because you will not be differentiating the number of waivers you have in the collection container system section. So I hope that was more clear. If not, let me know. I'll say it again. Okay. And I think the next question is from Ellen Law.
Yeah, I think I was kind of grouping these. I think the rest of these are now
okay.
almost all related to the waiver section you mentioned.
Okay.
So first up, to confirm, you mentioned this section is only to report waivers issued in 2024, not the total number of active waivers on file.
Correct. So in this section,
You are not, there you go, sharing again. There we go.
Forgot to hit the share button. Okay. Waivers and exemptions. So yes, you should be reporting on the number of waivers that were issued that year. So for the 2024 electronic annual report, this number should reflect the number of de minimis waivers and space waivers that were issued in 2024.
Yeah, so not a cumulative total. It's not you did 7 in 2021 or 2022 and then 10 the next year and 10 the year after, and now you're at 40. We're not looking to see the 40 here, just the 7 from last year. Which leads us to our next question from Anonymous. Our de minimis waiver, we only report for 2024. We had only 7 for 2023, and you continue to have that. but I didn't add any in 2024. Correct. So yeah, you would, in that case, you would put 0 for that number in that field. It's again anonymous. Confirm waivers issued in 2023 would not be reported in 24. Confirmed, correct. Yes, only the ones that were issued during calendar year 24. To Judith Silver, to confirm, we only report the number of newly issued waivers issued in 2024 for de minimis or physical space. Correct. So being new, can you explain where the SB 1333 exemption plays in? Well, Sandy, I think I'm going to ask you to unmute for that one because not sure which aspect you are talking about related to that, for the jurisdiction related waivers or the ones that you issue yourselves.
So we're a special district and we are an SB 1383 exempt. And I was told to tell you that. So I am like brand new. This was dumped on me just like 2 weeks ago. So I have no idea what is that plays into. So I was told to tell you that we're SB 1383 exempt. And so if you can explain that to me, I would love to understand it.
What district are you?
I'm Stallion Springs. We're a community services district and we're a special district here in California, which we service wastewater and all that.
A waiver from
I can barely hear you.
You received a waiver from CalRecycle?
Chris, your sound is really low. So Sandy, do you have a department approved waiver? I'm so sorry. Can you say can you say what district you are again?
Stallion Springs Community Services District.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you have a low population waiver. So on those
Mhm.
sections, you would check the low population waiver box and it would unrequire them. So you don't necessarily have to put in all the information.
Okay, so that's what the SB 33 is, the low population. That's what I needed to know. Perfect.
Yeah, so you received a low population waiver. So because of that, that section, that option shows up in your ear. Doesn't show up in everyone's. It only shows up in yours because you were granted that waiver. And then you check that box and that kind of unrequires all those fields. And then you can move along.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that.
Mm-hmm. But once again, because your whole jurisdiction is waived, you can move along. Like for an unincorporated county, where they still have areas that aren't waived, even though it unrequires the fields, we're still expecting answers for those. But in your case, yes, you can essentially skip those sections after you make a couple moves.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any more on this subject? Okay, RT, I think this is another one for you. More exemptions. Is it also only exemptions that are granted in the report year or total accounts exempt? So this is the other exemption section on that tab.
Okay, let me get to there. This section, more exemptions. Yes, so this should be annually as well. For that year.
Amber, we'll just unmute you to see if you have anything else to add on that. Once again, another trickier section. So yeah, Amber, go ahead and elaborate if you'd like.
Hi, no, I think that covers it. I think this is always a point of confusion for both the waivers and the exemptions because in the instructions, it's not that clear. And then it's interesting because we have recyclists that the instructions in recyclist that are supposed to be in line with the EAR report are also somewhat confusing. So thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, I mean, recyclists can feel free to get questions from us. I mean, we worked with them a little bit on this. RT, we didn't change this section at all in the last couple of years, did we?
No,
Yeah, didn't think so.
no, but we don't have that clarification in there. And that's
Yeah,
why
I think it's a confusion every year because it's not clarified.
Okay, well, anonymous participant jumped in again. Can you repeat that? More exemptions should only be new exemptions approved in the reporting year, not total more exemptions. Is this counterintuitive to SB 1383 since SB 1383 is more comprehensive than more?
So for this section for waivers, it should be reported for how many waivers and exemptions that were issued that year. I'm wondering if they're talking about a different section. Anonymous participant, let us know if you want to be unmuted so you can clarify a little bit more.
Anonymous participant, so don't know who. Okay. Once again, anonymous participant, feel free to send a message to the Logic mailbox, logic@calrecycle.ca.gov, and hopefully we can get you some more information. Once again, anonymous participant. So I understand the jurisdiction issued waivers and the exemptions are those that are newly issued in the reporting year only. But what about CalRecycle issued waivers? So for the jurisdiction issued waivers, you are basically putting in the number of ones that your jurisdiction, I guess, it's hard to tell whether you're reporting for multiple or just one. But for the waivers that the jurisdiction issued for de minimis or for space, you would put in the number of waivers issued during calendar year 2024. The CalRecycle issued waivers, if you're a jurisdiction, we've kind of demonstrated how that works in each of these grids, if you're a rural or low pot, and how you can check that box and skip certain sections. If this question's more about CalRecycle issued waivers for non-local entities or local education agencies, because I guess those would be showing up maybe in your jurisdiction count. RT, they wouldn't be reporting on those because we issued them, not the jurisdiction. We issued the waiver to the NLE or LEA. The jurisdiction wouldn't include that in the total because they're not doing it.
Yeah, and I think they're probably talking about this section here, the department issued waivers. So they have to enter the number of generators that are waived to subscribe. So I would say that this would probably need to be reported. And, because it's a department issued waivers, depending on, or department issue waivers, the number of generators could change on a year-to-year basis. So you are going to be reporting this information for that year because, if you are going to, let's say you had a low population waiver and you aren't entering information in some of the other sections, then we would need to capture the number of generators that are waived and this information here in the year.
Okay.
And was that anonymous too, Chris?
Anonymous is a very popular person today.
So feel free to reach out to us if we can go over your situation in depth with you, or reach out to your LAMD rep.
Okay, and last question, but not necessarily related to the rest. Is there a job aid in PDF format that explains step by step on how to complete the ear, or do we have to rely on videos on CalRecycle website? No, you don't have to do the video. There is a step by step. RT, since you got the screen control, can you go back to the annual report home? Scroll
Is
down a little bit.
it right here?
Right
This user's
there,
guide.
the ear user's guide. This is a PDF that's step by step. It doesn't necessarily go into all the accoutrement and detail and the how and the why about some of the things we've been talking about. But yeah, there's definitely a PDF that kind of step by steps all this about how the grids work and how have press edit, press this, press save, go here. All that is outlined in this PDF. The videos will give you more of the nuance, especially some of the ones from a couple years ago when we were very, very much longer webinars on each individual tab when it was newer. That's why we reference those, because those are probably one of the better methods to get a lot of the really detailed stuff out of this, because every section has so much. And once again, aside from this PDF, RT, did you point out the tooltips and everything in the each section of the ear has these little question marks you can hover over or press edit and edit a grid. There's one. Yeah. So especially in the grids too, some of the details of these questions are also hiding. Not want to say hiding. They're in these little tooltips. The reason they're in the tooltip and not just on the screen is because some of them are a little bit long-winded. So if we had all this text on the screen, you wouldn't even be able to see the questions. And there's already a lot of those. So between the ear PDF to give you a step-by-step on how to go through each section, and then those tooltips that are kind of on the screen for additional info per question, hopefully that covers it for you. And you have a LAMD representative you can contact. Once again, it's on the contacts page or on the home page where we just showed you that, the link to the PDF. Okay, I think that is all of the current questions. So RT, thank you so much. We'll see if anything else pops up. In the meantime, I'm going to back to my screen and do one more little demo for something that always seems to throw people off. Here and here. So the last bit I'm going to show, generally the rest of the sections, collection systems is the most intense as far as number of fields and how it works. But most of the other sections function a lot like procurement, where there's maybe a grid or two of questions, maybe some check marks, and then tree program information. I did see a question earlier in the Q&A about how much information to put in the tree program. That is completely up to you. It's a good repository of notes going very far back in history, all the way back to the late 80s, early 90s for some of them. It's up to you how detailed you want to be. If you don't put a note in, that's fine, especially if there's no change. If there was no change from the last couple of years, you don't even have to write no change. We'll take the blank to mean that. But if anything significant did change, yeah, it's good for you to let us know if there's any differences from what was going on here previously. And the last bit I want to cover on this screen was specific to in the commercial program section. Once again, same edit, the checkboxes, the individual SHRI programs and everything I just mentioned, and the one that always throws everyone off, venues and events. If you didn't have any venues and events, you can check this box and press save. I'll get an error because I didn't fill in all the SHRI checkboxes. But if I don't check that and I want to copy an event from a previous year, I'll press this button gonna, make sure you have everything saved that you wanted to on this page, because it will send you to another spot. So if you were individually going in and writing notes, make sure you save, edit again, and then come back and press this button, because if I hadn't done that extra save, it wouldn't have gotten that here. So I'm going to copy an event from a previous year. Yes. I'm going to pick the Sonoma County Fair, copy it to this year. So now it's copied over all the information except for 3 fields right here. And you'll get a little indicator. My Zoom box is hiding. You'll get a little indicator saying it's incomplete, because it is asking for 3 more questions to be answered for implementation tons. And you go here and practices and edit 100%, 10, 15, save. And now when I go back to the commercial program section, doesn't say incomplete. And once I complete the rest of the SRI programs, it would let me save the section and give the green check mark. That was the last bit of official demonstration. So we'll go back to the Q&A. And at this point, it's going to be sort of a open Q&A for everyone. So if you, once again, put anything in the Q&A here. If we don't get to your question, send it to Logic or contact your Lambda rep. And did we get questions? Yes. Do the SRI report year diversion tons have any purpose? Are we required to report these? They have a purpose in the sense that they're specific tons to a specific program. Just edit to get to one. And this question is specifically in reference to on the diversion program detail page. If you're going to do more than just put in a brief note on the previous page, it's referring to these tons. You're not required to report them. That's actually why it does put in a 0.0 to begin with. But I think depending on your jurisdiction's particular situation, reporting that can show extra effort in case maybe something's like, well, these programs aren't working, but here's what we're actually tracking through this. Another purpose of it can be just to have this be a store and a repository of data, because we do occasionally get public records requests and people want to know the tons reported for different programs through the year. And some reports we are able to provide. Others, it's like, well, no, they didn't really tell us anything, so we can't provide that. But as far as required, no, you're not. And the purpose is just extra information as part of different compliance reviews at some point. If it's not there, I don't think anyone would freak out, as long as everything else regarding your programs is going swimmingly. Okay. What happens if we enter SRI data on the additional information tab? When we go back, so this is, okay. What happens if we enter SRI data on the additional information tab, but when we return to the other tabs, their checkboxes are not checked off, correct? So on this additional information tab, it's got a summary of all the diversion programs assigned to your jurisdiction or selected by your jurisdiction. If you were to come in on each of these, and I'm just going to pick, we'll do residential curbside. And I believe this is the question. If you came in on here and you did whatever updates through this section and press save, and you went through all your programs from there, should it automatically check off? Like if I did all the residential programs from that screen, when I come back here, is it automatically going to have all these checked off? It's not, because the section is going to be different. And this is something we had to kind of deal with IT. It was thought that you would come through here at the very least and add any notes, not necessarily go backwards. So you'll see I did enter a note on that residential program, but it did not transfer over. Well, the note did, but it didn't transfer over that I'd completed the section, because you still have to come in and check the boxes, because these check boxes aren't necessarily for the program itself. It's for, as where I'm in now, the residential section. So if you start over in the, pick at least a material. If you start in the additional info and do your tree programs from here, the notes will carry, all the data will save, but you still have to complete each section on its own by just checking that box. Alex, if you would like to unmute yourself and clarify anything else on that, feel free, but hopefully that covers what you were asking about.
Is my unmute working?
Yep.
Okay. No, the reason I wanted to ask the question to clarify was, I think maybe a couple of years ago, we had, I guess, well, historically, the older, I guess when the report was like 90% SRI, right? Back then, if memory serves, there was only one place to enter the SRI data.
Yes, there was.
Yeah. And once the report expanded to be like, more 341, 1826, 1383, now we have a couple interfaces we can use. I think the first year we hit a problem just a few days before the report was due is when we discovered it, where we had continued our data entry for the SRI on that additional information page, which is the most similar to the old system, that we were using. And then when we went through and checked the boxes back off, it had the effect on tab by tab. When we checked off the boxes, it ended up having the effect of wiping clean the notes that we had typed on the additional description page, additional information page. And I just wanted to make sure that's not an issue that occurs any longer.
I don't think so, because I just went in and put this note on from the other page, but just to alleviate any fears.
So if you went into the main tab and you clicked off and you checked off that checkbox for 2000 now, I see that
so I already
oh, okay.
So I already checked that off. So I'm going to pick something in a different section. I will do something in commercial. So let's do commercial green waste. And then I'm doing all the updates and everything here. And then that wrong one. Note, save. And so your concern is that now when I go back to commercial programs and check the box, it's going to remove that note?
I think that would be my worry. I think that happened once a couple of years ago, and I was hoping it was maybe no longer an issue that doesn't have. Okay, so that's 3030. Okay.
Yeah, my little note with the broken O is right there.
Look at
So
there, and then
if
if you
check that box,
yeah,
let me press save.
Still appears.
Nope.
And then also it would transfer through all the way. If you click that link right there, it would also transfer through to the additional information page tab as well, right?
Yeah. So what goes into this page, this is this diversion program detail page we're looking at. When you click that link, either from the additional info or from the commercial or residential tab, it's taking you to this same page. So whatever you enter on here, it's kind of separate from either of those tabs. That's what I was saying. Even if you did the report that way, you're still going to have to go back in and check the individual tabs or the individual box. Wrong thing. You'll still have to go in and check the individual boxes on this page to complete this section, but it shouldn't affect the notes or anything else in the diversion program details.
Gotcha. Thanks.
All righty. Okay. Anonymous participants. Follow-up question to the SRI diversion tons. Do they count towards AB 939 calculation / 50% waste diversion minimum? No, not particularly to the disposal rate calculation that we had discussed. Those diversion tons that you put in on the individual programs are unrelated, especially because those tons were diverted. In a way, they count towards AB 939 calculation because they're not being included in this total because they're not being disposed of. So in that sense, yes, those count towards AB 939, 50% waste reduction. Do those tons in the SHRI affect this calculator at all? No, they do not. Carlos Gomez, can I go over a copy from previous year again? I'll try, but because I've already done it, I can't copy that same, I can't copy the same event again. So let me see if there's an older event maybe from a long time ago. Way back? No, Sonoma County Fair. Yeah, I don't think I can demo that again very easily because I've already did it. But essentially what happens is you click this, you press do copy to this year, and then it'll copy the event over and it'll show up at the bottom of your screen, and you'll have a little indicator over here that says incomplete. This one I already completed. So if it says incomplete, you want to go into the event itself, and on the practices tab, press edit, and you have to put in an implementation level. And then you have to put in disposed or diverted tons there and diverted tons. So that to copy an event over and complete the section, those are the 3 moves you have to make to finish that one. Okay. Next up, have there been any updates or changes to any of the edible food related questions? No, there have been no changes to this, no changes to the hints or the fields. These are still exactly as they have been the last couple years. Hopefully that will answer your question, Anonymous. But yeah, nothing different on any of those. Okay. Aya Hoffman, on the enforcement and monitoring tab, where should we put NOVs, etc., issued to backhaulers? T or Marshall, would you like to take this one? Because I'm not as familiar with this section, unfortunately.
Sure, let me.
You want to take the screen?
It logged me out again. Hold on one second.
Yeah, sorry. Too many SHRI questions. I'm surprised. I'm so happy. I never get to talk about that stuff anymore.
Okay. Let me share. Sorry, I'm trying to find the screen. Oh, no, that screen. Are you seeing the right screen?
I also want to make sure that we clarify the question because this is for NOVs and it's specific to backhaulers. And so I'm a little confused on the question. This is Marsha.
RT, we're not seeing your screen yet, and we can.
Oh my gosh, sorry.
No, I think it's because I was still sharing, so I had to turn that
okay.
off. I was reading the question on one side and had it unshared on the other. So if you want to pull the screen up, and I can ask Maya to unmute and clarify her question.
You see it now?
Yes, we can see it. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. So
sorry, hi, this is Maya Hoffman. I just was wondering, do you want me to clarify the question?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, so we have backhaulers, some of them backhaul organics and some backhaul other materials. And we started enforcing upon them per 1383 because they weren't submitting reports that we require in our ordinance. And so I don't see them as a entity type in here. So I was wondering, 1, should we only list the ones that backhaul organics? And 2, should I just not list them at all?
okay. So you would just, I think, and Marshall, correct me if I'm wrong, you would
They're
just,
organic waste generators.
yeah,
You got
yeah,
it.
you would just include them in here under NOVs issued for the commercial organic waste generator because they are a generator.
So, but only if they backhaul organics, not if they backhaul other stuff that, and only, like if they were only backhauling film plastic, for example, you would not want me to put them in there.
Yeah, so this is just the NOV that was issued to the generator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think if you hover over it, there's a pop-up for the tooltip there. And it says enter the number of notice of violations issued for the organic waste generators. If none, then you enter 0. But yeah, let us know if you have further questions about that, and we can help you through your land rep too.
Right. Anonymous again. Will the recording of this webinar be sent out to participants after? Yes, we usually do that. We've got to get it downloaded and annotated and put on to YouTube. Might edit out that first couple minutes when I couldn't figure out where my Zoom buttons went. But other than that, yes, it should be posted on YouTube, and we'll send a note out as soon as we can. Okay, last up. I'm familiar with creating a PDF of our EAR from the Logic main page. However, as a regional agency, our EAR responses tend to be rather long and tend to get cut off mid-response. How can we generate a complete PDF of our draft summary EAR that doesn't cut off? I don't know. I wasn't aware that was an issue. Alex, I'm going to unmute you again, and maybe you can enlighten us on that, because I hadn't heard that. I'm wondering, are you losing data, or is it like a character limit thing? Just not sure. News to me on that.
Yeah.
Haven't heard that yet.
Yeah, I think what's happened to us, I mean, we've got 18 cities, and so the responses, tend to be
I've seen your PDF.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
all
But I
250
didn't.
pages of it. Yeah.
I've heard like is the box like just ending and then mid sentence it just disappears?
I'm gonna say, I'm not looking at one of the PDFs at the moment, of course, but if memory serves, it tends to affect probably the longer narratives. So maybe the 3 sections get cut off after a certain amount of probably halfway through. But that's after paragraphs and paragraphs of text, because we might have at least 1 paragraph per city, for example.
Yeah.
So
Is
yeah,
it
or
is
maybe
it
when it's a page break, because it
is it,
generates PDF.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so when in the EAR though, in that box you're putting them in, it's not cutting it off. It's only cutting it off on the summary report.
No, the EAR seems to remain complete. And then it seems like the function, the cutoff seems to occur somewhere between the logic creating the PDF and making it to try to fit onto 8.5 by 11 pages. That's just my guess. I don't know the back end and all the technical details of how that would work, but I feel like that's where it's cut off for us before.
Yeah, if you could send an example of that to the Logic mailbox, we can check with IT on it, because
Gotcha.
that
Okay.
PDF's finicky. And I will say, yeah, RT and I both said, oh, we didn't change anything in the EAR. No, we didn't. We did make a couple changes on the PDF from last year where people noticed a couple of the fields were like juxtaposed or something. So that PDF sometimes can get a little tedious. But yeah, send an example and like note, because I know like yours is like 300 pages long. If you could note like what page it's happening on, we can see if we can do anything about that.
Gotcha. Will do. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. Okay. Well, with that, we don't have any other questions. We will sit tight for a minute, but I think this might be a good time to invite Marshall in to speak, to see if there's anything she would like to add regarding the year or other related items.
Thank you, Chris. I was just writing a note to say how fantastic this webinar has been and how responsive you and the rest of the team are. I don't have any additional questions, but did you have the update that I wanted to share? Because if not, I'll pull it up.
Oh, I do. I was wondering if you
Okay.
wanted to share it, but
Yeah,
you're important. You got to have something substantive.
I know, but now I don't have it up. Hold on one sec.
Oh, okay. Let me lost my screen.
Hold
Yeah.
on.
What is the guidance regarding the Taylor form submission? Should that be effective date July 1st?
Well, this is embarrassing.
2026.
Here, I'm forwarding it to you. The one from yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Like all the suspense, it's so anticlimactic. All right, all right. We still on hold. There's no questions. Okay, coming back to the message. All right, so this is just a message for mainly for the jurisdictions, and it relates to SB 54 and the needs assessment survey. So we want to communicate that regarding the concern that has been raised by a number of local jurisdiction representatives, specifically at the SB 54 Advisory Board meeting last week, about not having enough time to complete the collection survey disseminated by SB 54 Needs Assessment Study Contractor, which is HF&H. We're happy to update you that HF&H has agreed to offer a 2-week extension, which goes out to July 17th to complete the collection survey. So this would be for jurisdictions that need an extension, or if there are unique circumstances, such as when a single recycling service provider is responsible for filling out the survey on behalf of multiple jurisdictions. So we encourage you to contact HF&H at a specific email address that I'm not going to spell out. I'm going to put it in the chat.
I put the blurb in the chat.
You
So
already
so
did?
relevant.
Oh my gosh.
Just
Okay.
as you said it.
Oh my goodness. Wow, look at that.
Yes,
Like we knew what we were doing. So there was,
for those who can't see the chat, it is EPR needs assessment, all one word, at hfh-consultants.com.
beautiful.
EPR needs assessment.
And again, another amazing webinar. I really appreciate the attention to detail. And a lot of that comes from not just you guys being prepared so nicely, but from all the great questions. So thank you for your participation.
We have a question regarding the survey, Marshall. It's from an anonymous participant, and they're asking, their survey is voluntary, correct?
It is. It is. And if you have questions, I mean, this is not the format, but we will be working with jurisdictions more and more with the implementation of SB 54 to clarify the impact on local jurisdictions and the relief fiscally that will be provided related to recycling certain materials. So if you have a specific question about participating in that, I encourage you to reach out to our local LAM rep, and we can take a little bit more time to clarify the importance of participation. But regardless, again, it is voluntary.
Another question.
Thank you. Sorry, I was trying to find my
No worries. Would it be appropriate to have our facility operators fill out the survey?
I think it would be, might be more appropriate for it to be the hauler, which in some cases is the same as the facility operator. So it would depend. Because this is for local governments regarding what is collected. And there is a separate endeavor to understand what is being recovered at the facility level.
And we had another question pop up. This one's in the chat, which I saw because I happened to have it open from putting the blurb in there. Isabella Villegas is asking, will their survey results meeting be extended as well or same date? I'm guessing they announced they were going to have a meeting sometime a couple weeks after. I don't know if we have that level of clarity yet. Michelle, do you know?
Oh, I was talking with my mute button on. I don't know how to get that information out to everybody, but at least we can follow up with the first person asking. Because I'm not familiar, and I apologize that I'm not familiar with that next step.
All right. Well, in that case, thank you for the extra info regarding the survey. We haven't had any other questions come in the Q&A in the last few minutes. So I guess with that, we will wrap things up. Thank you all for participating. We will send another message out soon with the link to the webinar itself. And once again, if you have questions, send them to the Logic mailbox, logic@calrecycle.ca.gov, or please contact your land rep. Once again, thank you all for participating and to our wonderful guest presenters with RT and Peter, and we will see you next year. Bye.